Picture this. A man drops to one knee in a crowded restaurant. The diamond flashes. The room goes silent. He delivers a speech about eternal love. She cries. She says yes. The crowd explodes in applause. Everyone thinks they've just witnessed romance at its purest form. But what if I told you this entire scene is a scam? Not romance, not devotion, a carefully scripted illusion. The truth. That gesture is not about her feelings. It's about his fear. Think about it. Why are men the ones buying rings, planning dinners, booking trips, remembering every date, while women sit in judgment? Why are men sweating over price tags, going into debt, working extra hours, just to prove they are worthy of love? Why is romance always a performance where men pay and women evaluate? Here's the pain nobody talks about. Men are told that if they don't play this game, they lose access to love entirely. Stop spending. She questions your effort. Forget an anniversary. She questions your commitment. Suggest splitting the bill. She questions your value. Most men think romance is the path to happiness, but the truth is, it's a trap, a system built to exploit insecurity, drain wallets, and keep men on their knees literally and metaphorically. And if you think that sounds extreme, wait until I show you where this scam actually began. Because once you see it, you'll never look at romance the same way again. Stay with me. What you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew about love. Most people believe romance was designed to make women feel loved. Flowers, chocolates, candlelit dinners. They look like gifts for her. But what nobody tells you is, this romance was never created for women. It was invented for men. Not to give, but to survive. Not devotion, but desperation. Think back to history. For thousands of years, attraction was brutally simple. Power created options. Options created choice. Kings, warriors, landowners, these men didn't beg. They didn't audition. They didn't get down on one knee. Their wealth, their armies, their status spoke louder than poetry ever could. Protection, security, survival. That was the real currency. In a world where winter could kill you and enemies could burn your village, a man's resources were more valuable than any poem. He wasn't writing sonnets. He was writing guarantees. He wasn't buying roses. He was buying safety. And no rational woman refused that. Now consider King Solomon. 700 wives, 300 concubines, 1,000 women at his command. That wasn't romance. That was resource distribution. Solomon gave them what no farmer, no craftsman, no shopkeeper could. Palaces, servants, security, status. The title of being chosen by the most powerful man alive. Now imagine being one of the other men. No palace, no treasure rooms, no army. What could you possibly offer that competes with being queen? Nothing. You were priced out of the market, and that was the cruel truth most men lived with. But here's the twist. Somewhere in medieval Europe, a new game was born. Men who couldn't compete with power created a substitute. If you couldn't offer gold, you offered feelings. If you couldn't give land, you gave words. If you couldn't command, you confessed. The troubadours called it romance, but it wasn't for women. It was for men who needed a back door into the game. It rebranded weakness as purity. Suddenly, the man with nothing became the true lover, while the man with everything became the villain who didn't understand love. It was not love. It was marketing. And here's the uncomfortable question. If romance was built as a strategy for powerless men, why are powerful men playing it today? Stay with me, because once you see how this trap evolved into modern dating, you'll never look at romance the same way again. Romance didn't stay a trick of medieval poets. It evolved into a global system, and today you see it everywhere. Jewelry stores, fancy restaurants, Instagram feeds filled with anniversaries and proposal videos. The theater has scaled. The costumes changed. But the script is still the same. Men perform. Women evaluate. Most men think they're buying joy for their partner. But the truth is, they're buying survival for themselves. They're told if they don't pay, they don't get chosen. Forget the flowers. You don't care. Miss the dinner. You're not committed. Suggest she pays suddenly. You're not a man at all. What nobody tells you is that romance operates like a tax on men. Not optional, but mandatory. Not one gift, but endless gifts. Not one grand gesture, but a lifetime subscription to proving your worth. And here's the kicker. Her happiness isn't really the transaction. Your access is. Watch any modern relationship. He plans the dates. He pays the bills. He remembers the milestones. He spends time learning her interests. He invests energy building experiences. She receives. She decides. She grants access. Not equality, but exchange. Not love, but a contract you were tricked into signing without reading the fine print. And the cruel twist, romance creates artificial scarcity. Affection, intimacy, connection, these should be natural, abundant, free. But the system turns them into premium products, available only if you audition hard enough. He chases. She chooses. He proves. She approves. This isn't biology, this isn't destiny. It's cultural engineering, teaching both men and women to play roles that don't serve them. Men learn that their value is output. Women learn that their value is selectivity. Neither side wins. Both sides perform, and industries profit. So here's the uncomfortable question. If love has been reduced to a transaction, how much are you really paying for something that should never have had a price tag? Stay with me, because next I'll show you how this performance trap turns relationships into an endless audition, and why most men don't even realize they're on stage. This is where the trap reveals itself. Romance doesn't just demand one performance. It demands endless performance. A man doesn't simply win the role of boyfriend or husband once he must keep auditioning for the same part, every single day. Most men think once she says yes, the game is over. But the truth is, that's when the game begins. Every anniversary becomes a test. Every holiday becomes an exam. Every forgotten detail becomes evidence that he is slipping. What nobody tells you is that love in this system is conditional, not on who you are, but on how well you perform. Miss the script, lose the role. Forget the flowers, lose the approval. Question the costs, lose the access. And this is why men walk through relationships with silent anxiety, knowing one failed gesture could collapse everything. Women are not free either. She learns that her value lies not in creating love, but in guarding it. She becomes the prize to be won, not the partner to be built with. Her role is not to desire, but to be desired, not to contribute, but to evaluate. At first, it feels empowering. then it turns hollow. The result, a relationship that looks perfect on Instagram, but feels empty in private. A couple going through milestones, but not through intimacy. He performs romance, not because he feels it, but because failing to perform threatens survival. She receives gestures, not because she wants them, but because rejecting them makes her look ungrateful. Not passion, but pressure. Not love, but theater. Two people trapped in roles that never belonged to them. And the cruelest part, they both start to confuse performance with reality. They start to believe the act is the relationship. So here's the uncomfortable question if love has become a stage play. Who is the audience? And more importantly, who's selling the tickets? Stay with me, because in the next part, I'll show you how entire industries profit from this performance trap, and why men keep paying for a show that was never meant to serve them. Here's the part nobody likes to admit. Romance isn't just a personal trap. It's a billion-dollar industry. What started as poetry has been turned into profit, and every man caught in the performance trap is now paying companies that have zero interest in his happiness. Most men think they're spending money on her, but the truth is, they're spending money on corporations. The diamond isn't for her, it's for De Beers. The dinner isn't for her, it's for the restaurant. The vacation isn't for her, it's for the travel company. She enjoys the gesture. Yes, but the real winner is the industry cashing his paycheck. What nobody tells you is that romance has been weaponized as marketing. 2 months' salary for a ring. A luxury getaway to prove your love. Date night or your relationship dies. These aren't cultural traditions. They're sales campaigns. And the men who buy into them, they don't look romantic. They look obedient. It's not love, it's a subscription model. Not devotion, it's a payment plan. You don't just buy her affection once. You pay rent on it. Month after month. Holiday after holiday. A lifetime of receipts. All to maintain access you thought you had already earned. And here's the cruel irony. The more money men pour into this system, the less authentic the connection becomes. When every moment is staged for Instagram, when every gift has a price tag, when every anniversary becomes a financial burden, how much of it is real? How much of it is performance? Meanwhile, the industries keep growing fat on male insecurity. Jewelry companies push bigger stones. Restaurants raise prices. Travel ads sell fantasy escapes. Social media amplifies the scoreboard, turning private relationships into public competitions. And who loses? Not the companies, not the culture, the man, always the man. So ask yourself this, if your love requires constant financial sacrifice, is it really love? Or is it a transaction dressed in roses and candles? Stay with me, because next I'll expose the biology underneath this system. Why men keep paying, why women keep choosing, and why culture keeps lying about what attraction really is. Romance sells you a dream. Biology sells you the truth. And biology always wins. Most men think women fall for roses, poems, and grand gestures. But the truth is, women are wired to value security, competence, and resources. Not chocolates, but stability. Not candlelight, but survival. Culture may preach follow your heart, yet her subconscious is scanning, can he protect me? Can he provide? Can he lead? What nobody tells you is this. A woman can smile at your flowers, melt at your poetry, and still lose attraction because her biology isn't convinced. She might enjoy the gesture, but her DNA is asking one ruthless question. can this man keep me safe when the storm hits? And it cuts both ways. Men aren't innocent dreamers, either. Men are biologically wired to pursue youth, beauty, and fertility cues, not deep conversations, but clear signals of health, not intellectual sparks, but subconscious markers of reproduction. Culture can shame him for this, but biology doesn't care. That's why romance feels fake. Because it is fake. It tries to overwrite instinct with theater. It asks men to believe that feelings matter more than resources. It asks women to believe that emotions matter more than security. But biology doesn't negotiate with marketing. It always drags us back to the same primal patterns. And here lies the irony. Men spend fortunes trying to be romantic heroes, but the man with competence, power, and stability usually wins. Women insist romance matters, but when it's time to choose, they pick security over sentiment. Both genders repeat the cultural script, but their actions betray the biological truth. So ask yourself, if the culture keeps preaching romance is love, yet biology keeps proving otherwise, which one should you really trust? Stay with me, because next I'll reveal how this mismatch between biology and culture creates relationships built on performance instead of authenticity, and why most couples quietly suffocate under the weight of that lie. When biology pulls one way and culture pulls the other, the result is chaos. Couples end up in relationships that look romantic on the surface but feel hollow inside. They hit milestones, they buy gifts, they stage anniversaries. But deep down, both of them feel the weight of performance. Most men think being a good partner means providing endless gestures. But the truth is, this only trains them to live under constant anxiety. Forget one date, and you're accused of not caring. Skip one holiday, and your commitment is questioned. What nobody tells you is that love in this system is never secure. It's conditional. And women, they're trapped too. She learns that her value lies not in desiring, but in being desired. She becomes the prize, not the partner. She evaluates, she approves, she withholds. At first it feels powerful, but eventually she wonders, am I loved for who I am, or for what I represent? The performance trap poisons intimacy. He performs because he fears losing her. She receives because rejecting would make her ungrateful. Not passion, but pressure. Not spontaneity, but script. And the cruel irony is that both start confusing the act with the reality. They begin to think the performance is the relationship. This is why so many couples suffocate in silence. The man resents the endless pressure to provide proof. The woman questions the authenticity of what she receives. They smile for photos, but behind closed doors, it feels transactional. Not connection, but compliance. Not love, but labor. And here's the bitter punchline: the more they perform, the less they feel. The more they try to prove, the less they believe. The performance becomes a prison, and both serve life sentences. So let me ask you this. If the relationship only survives when you're acting, is it even a relationship or just a contract dressed as love? Stay with me, because next I'll reveal how this trap gets reinforced by social pressure, public scoreboards, and why men are unknowingly competing in a game they can never win. Here's where the performance trap gets supercharged. In the past, men only had to prove themselves to one woman. Today, they have to prove themselves to the entire internet. Social media has turned private love into public theater, and every couple into contestants in a competition they never signed up for. Most men think they're posting to celebrate their partner, But the truth is, they're posting to survive social judgment. Forget the anniversary post. People whisper that you don't care. Skip the Valentine's dinner story. She feels embarrassed next to her friends. Miss the proposal video. You don't look like a real man. What nobody tells you is that platforms like Instagram and TikTok don't just showcase romance, they monetize it. Every bouquet, every getaway, every ring becomes content. The relationship itself becomes a scoreboard. Not intimacy, but performance metrics. Not love, but likes. And the cruel part, the scoreboard keeps moving. One guy surprises his girlfriend with Paris. Suddenly, every man in that circle feels pressure to match it. One influencer gets a 6-carat ring. Now, every woman watching recalibrates her expectations. The baseline rises, but nobody questions the system. They just run faster, spend more, perform harder. It's not romance, it's inflation. The same love and now costs triple because the culture demands bigger stages, louder gestures, and more expensive props. What used to be enough no longer counts. What once looked romantic now looks bare minimum. This is how men burn out. They aren't just competing for her approval, they're competing against every other man broadcasting his highlight reel. And here's the bitter punchline: no matter how much he spends, someone will always spend more. No matter how hard he performs, someone will always outdo him. So let me ask you this. If love has become a public scoreboard where men compete endlessly, can anyone actually win, or is the game itself rigged from the start? Stay with me, because next, I'll expose how this endless race doesn't just exhaust men, it quietly destroys the foundation of intimacy itself. When romance becomes competition, intimacy dies. Because intimacy requires honesty, but performance requires acting. And when every gesture is staged for approval, authenticity suffocates. Most men think they're building closeness by buying more, planning more, performing more. But the truth is, they're only widening the gap. She doesn't feel his soul. She sees his output. He doesn't feel her desire. He feels her evaluation. Not intimacy, but inspection. Not connection, but compliance. What nobody tells you is this, and the more elaborate the show, the less real it feels. A man gives flowers, but she wonders if it's genuine or just obligation. She says thank you, but he wonders if it's gratitude or just politeness. Both play their roles. Both suppress their doubts. And both feel a quiet emptiness that grows with every performance. This is why modern relationships feel exhausting. He isn't giving because he wants to, he's giving because he has to. She isn't receiving because she craves it. She's receiving because she's expected to. What once was spontaneous becomes scheduled. What once was desire becomes duty. And here's the cruel irony. The more they try to prove their love, the less they actually feel it. It becomes a vicious cycle. Performance replaces intimacy. Obligation replaces passion. Expectation replaces freedom. Couples stay together not because they are deeply connected, but because they are deeply afraid of what happens if the performance stops. It's not love anymore. It's theater with no intermission, a contract with no escape clause, a ritual repeated so often that both sides forget what genuine attraction even felt like. So here's the hard question. If your relationship only survives under constant obligation, can you still call it love, or is it just another job you can't quit? Stay with me, Because next, I'll reveal what happens when men finally step off the stage, stop performing, and force the system to face the truth it's been hiding all along. So how do you escape the theater? You stop playing a role that was never written for you. You step off the stage and start living as a man, not as a performer. Most men think romance is their ticket to love. But the truth is, romance is just the price of admission to a rigged game. You don't win by outspending other men. You win by refusing to play their game at all. Not bigger diamonds, but stronger character. Not grander gestures, but authentic value. What nobody tells you is that women respect competence far more than flowers. They follow leadership far more than poems. They feel safe with stability, not with candlelight dinners staged for Instagram. A man who owns himself, his vision, his discipline. His purpose doesn't need to beg for approval. He attracts it naturally. And here's the twist: when you stop performing, you force authenticity into the relationship. She no longer evaluates you based on output. She evaluates you based on who you are. And if she can't accept that, then she wasn't choosing you. She was choosing the theater. This is the moment men rediscover their power. When they stop paying for access and start demanding mutual value. When they say, "I won't audition for love. I will build with someone who wants me as I am." That shift alone exposes how fragile the romantic scam really is. Because once enough men refuse the performance, the system collapses. Industries lose their grip. The false narratives lose their shine. And relationships finally have the chance to return to what they were meant to be: mutual, authentic, real. So let me ask you this: if you knew you could build love without the receipts, without the stage, without the lies, would you dare to walk away from the theater? Stay with me, because in the final part, I'll show you the ultimate truth about attraction and why the men who stop performing are the ones who actually win. Here's the final truth: romance, as culture sells it, was never about love. It was a script written to keep men performing, women approving, and industries profiting. The greatest scam in human history wasn't war, wasn't politics. It was turning love into a marketplace. And most men still haven't woken up. Most men think if they just pay enough, perform enough, sacrifice enough, she will finally give them unconditional love. But the truth is, unconditional love cannot be purchased. Not with diamonds, not with vacations, not with a lifetime of rehearsed gestures. What nobody tells you is that real attraction doesn't care about receipts. It only cares about reality. Because genuine attraction emerges when two people value each other's authentic selves. Not performance, but presence. Not obligation, but choice. When a man stands in his competence, his discipline, his vision, he doesn't need to audition. And when a woman chooses him for that, not for the props, the connection finally becomes real. And here's the part that should set you free once you stop performing. You also stop bleeding. You stop fueling industries that profit from insecurity. You stop handing over your power in exchange for staged approval. You stop confusing applause with intimacy. And for the first time, you start building something that belongs to both of you, not to the culture that exploits you. It's not easy. It's not comfortable. Walking away from the theater means some women will leave because they were never with you. They were with the performance. But the ones who stay, they're the ones who want you, not the stage. And that difference changes everything. So let me ask you this: are you willing to step off the stage, even if it means losing the crowd, to finally find the kind of connection that doesn't need an audience? Because this isn't the end. this is the beginning. In the next chapter, I'll break down how men can rebuild relationships on strength, authenticity, and mutual value without ever bowing to the scam of modern romance again.